We're on page
This meeting is
85.
being recorded.
We're on page 85 of your grammar book. So go ahead and turn to that. '85.
All right.
Okay. We're talking about adjectives today. You know pretty much about adjectives already, words that modify a noun or describe a noun. And so today we're going to learn about a couple different ways to use adjectives and forms, basically, of adjectives. So an adjective describes a noun or pronoun. It tells which one, what kind, how many, or whose. Those are the questions you can ask to identify an adjective. And here it is in the margin if you ever want to use this page as a reference. There are three different forms of adjectives. So the first one here is a single word adjective. That's the one you've already been practicing in your grammar book. Basically, it comes before a noun it describes, or it can follow a linking verb and describe the subject of the clause. So here we have the green frog croaked. The frog was green. Obviously, the adjective is green, is describing the frog. And then which frog? It's the green frog. And then we've got phrasal adjectives. This is what might be a little bit new to you. You already know prepositional phrases, and it begins with a preposition and ends with a noun and pronoun or pronoun. The entire phrase functions as a single unit. That means while each word in the prepositional phrase has its own job, all the words together do the job of an adjective or an adverb. So the example here, the frog with green skin croaked, and we know that with is a preposition, and with green skin is the prepositional phrase, but it operates as an adjective. So when green skin is a prepositional, with green skin is a prepositional phrase, the entire phrase is a phrasal adjective that comes after a noun and describes that noun. So which frog with green skin. Okay, so that's going to be a new way to label your adjectives in your homework this week with PP for phrasal prepositional phrase. PP is prepositional phrase, and then an adjective with it. So PPADJ. A participle phrase. Remember, participles we talked about a few weeks ago that end in ing. They begin with a present participle, an ing word. The entire phrase describes a noun in the sentence and does the job of the adjective. Wearing a top hat, the frog croaked. So this is an ing adjective. Prepositional phrase adjective, ing adjective. That's how you'll label it this week. The frog wearing a top hat croaked. It's another way to arrange the words. So wearing a top hat is a participle phrase, ing phrase. The entire phrase is a phrasal adjective that describes a noun in the sentence. Which frog? Wearing a top hat. Okay. And then we have clausal adjectives, and that's the who, which clause. We're familiar with those. It's a dependent clause that begins with who or which and includes the subject and verb. The entire clause describes a noun it follows and does the job of an adjective. The frog who wore a top hat croaked. So there's our who clause. Who wore a top hat is the who, which clause. The entire clause is a clausal adjective that describes a noun it follows. Which frog who wore a top hat. Okay, so there's three different ways you're going to mark your adjectives this week. You're going to write ADJ above the single word adjective, and then PP adjective above the prepositional phrase that functions as an adjective, and then ING ADJ above each participle phrase. And then you've got these notes in the margin, so that's going to help you on your homework this week. Do you have any questions about that so far, Jasper?
No, I'm all good.
Okay. Go ahead and turn to 86. There's a little bit more. We're talking about adverbs on this page. And we already know it modifies a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. An adverb tells how, when, where, why, and to what extent. Here's your margin questions to remind you about that. Adverbs come in three forms. So single word adverbs, just like single word adjectives, we already know those. The frog usually croaked. The frog often croaked. So usually modifies croaked. Croaked when, usually. And then the other one is croaked when, often. So it modifies that word croaked. And here the frog did not croak. The words yes, no, not, to, even, else function as adverbs. And then there's phrasal adverbs. And it's like the phrasal adjectives where you've got the prepositional phrase. It begins with a preposition, ends with a noun. The entire phrase functions as a single unit, just like the other one. That means while each word has in the prepositional phrase has its own job, all the words work together to do the job of an adjective or an adverb. So in this case, it's doing the job of an adverb. If a prepositional phrase tells how, when, where, or why, the entire phrase does the job of an adverb. In the morning, the frog croaked. So in the morning is the phrase, and it modifies the verb croaked, and it tells when. So croaked when, in the morning. Okay, and then clausal adverbs, that's an adverb clause, whereas the other one for adjectives was a who, which clause. This is the adverb clause. It's a dependent clause that begins with a www word that includes a subject and a verb. The entire clause modifies a verb in the sentence and does the job of an adverb. The frog croaked as he woke. As he woke is an adverb clause because it starts with as. Remember www.asia. A is the word as. The entire clause is a clausal verb that modifies a verb in the sentence. Croaked when? As he woke. So this week, you're going to still mark adverbs as those single word adverbs with ADV, but then you're going to be adding this one, PP, for prepositional phrase adverb. And then you're going to mark it as that above that phrase. And then quality adjectives and ly adverbs. This is just a note down here. Like strong verbs, quality adjectives, and ly adverbs create a strong image or feeling. Continue to look for quality adjectives and ly adverbs in this book and write them on the collection pages in Appendix 2. Use these words in your own writing. So it's just a note for you at the back of the book. There's a place to make your list because in this story that we're working through, there's a lot of great ly adverbs and quality adjectives. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the writing part of the class. So any questions about the adverbs page? No, you're good. Okay. We're not going to do this page together, but I just wanted to point out a couple of things here. This is page 87. Notice under market that your list is getting pretty long. Most of them are familiar to you. This one right here, prep phrases, this is how you're going to label it. You're going to underline it, the phrase, and label it PPADJ. Or prepositional phrase adverb, this is how you label it. You're going to underline it and label it with PPADV. Those are the two new ones. You still have your regular adverbs and your regular adjectives. So other than that, everything else you're probably familiar with, but any questions about how to label it on your homework?
No, I think
You're
it's all
good.
good.
Okay. So your homework will be 87, 88, 89, and 90 for this week. And as usual, I will post your answer key after you work on it yourself. You can check it there. And you're pretty good about using your book. I know we talked about that in the parent teacher conference. So keep doing that. That's going to help you a lot to flip through your book. Okay. I'm going to go over, I'm going to stop the share here for a second and just go over your homework page from this week. Couple things I wanted to talk to you about with your homework. I don't know, I graded it this morning, so you probably haven't had a chance to see my notes yet. I did give you a 10 out of 10 because I really like your writing and I think you did an excellent job. So I want to start by saying that your writing is just really colorful is the first word that comes to mind. It's got a lot of descriptive words in there and you do a great job making it flow and describing what's happening. So I really like your writing, Jasper. You're doing great. So, couple of things. I found a couple of banned words. I think it's just one. Right here, you said went. Joseph became a priest and went to Molokai, Hawaii. So I caught that one. I figured out something I wanted to show you about that. If you drop down this little menu right here and you go to edit, there's a place that says find and replace. I discovered that this morning. I don't know if you've ever used that, but what I did was just type in your banned words. And like right now it doesn't show it, but if the banned word is there, this next button will be blue. So you can click on it and then it'll show you where it's at. So that's kind of a little trick because I know like when I talked to you and Grant last time, it's really hard to find those banned words when you're looking at your own writing that you've read like 10 times already. So anyway, it's a little trick if you want to use that. And then I did notice that you, on the second paragraph, I need to talk to you about your topic clincher sentences. So I do see here you have Father Damien, and then you have Father Damien at the end, and then you had great works and great works. And so I do see that you pointed them out to me. The only trouble is that you bolded and underlined everything, so it doesn't quite follow the checklist. So when you're doing your dress up words like who, engaged, and tragic, those are just going to be underlined. You don't need to bold those. Okay. And then for your topic clincher, you can either bold or highlight. It looks like you like to bold, and that's totally fine with me, but don't underline them too. Okay. So topic clincher is just bold, and then your dress ups are just underlined. Does that make sense to you? Okay. It looks like your internet is glitching, so I don't know if I'm glitching on your end.
No, you're going through clear.
Oh, good. Awesome. Okay. Okay, so just those little tips. And then I do want to talk to you about your first paragraph. I did see, and I actually, it turned green, but what I did was bold these words. But I saw that you had your topic clincher. You've got Joseph and young farmer and young farmer. So just make sure you follow that same rule, that you bold those, and then you just underline your dress ups on your first paragraph too. So each paragraph will have both of those elements to it. Okay. Okay. Let's see. What else was I going to tell you about that? I think that was pretty much it. Oh, I know what it was. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the topic clincher in a minute too, but you can, the rule is, and I know I taught you the little hand jives, the topic sentence and the clincher sentence must repeat or reflect 2 or 3 key words. And you can do repeat, but I will tell you, if you reflect, it gives it a little bit more style. So you can, I noticed you repeated on both, which is okay. It still counts, but just to kind of up it a little bit, because your writing is so good, you're ready to take it to the next level. Try to do the reflecting with a synonym or something. It does give the paper a little bit more style that way. Okay, Jasper?
All right.
Cool. Any questions about what I'm talking about for your homework?
No, I think I got it.
You're good. Okay. Good. And like I said, it's really, I enjoy reading your writing. It's really great. And you have a way with words, and I enjoy that. So, and just a sneak peek into our next week's lesson, we're going to move into the next unit. And I'm just going to tell you, you're going to love it because it's back to creative writing, which I think is your forte. So it's going to be fun. I'm excited to like move on to past the academic writing stuff, because sometimes that can be kind of mundane, so this is going to be good. Moving on. All right, so now I'm going to actually, I have a lot of class notes for you today. So I just need you to get out a couple clean pieces of paper, because I'm going to have you write notes to just have as reference. Use this real quick. As we go through the class here, is a couple of important things that I do want you to pay attention to. So as usual, go ahead and just label your page here with your name and date. Today's Groundhog Day, by the way. Did you know that?
Oh, I forgot.
I only know that because it was on Facebook this morning. I was like, oh, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he responds to whatever happens. We're just going to label this class notes. Okay. And the thing we're going to talk about mostly today, well, actually I have a couple things on here. Yeah, let's just skip a line and we'll call it dress ups first, because we're going to talk about your dress ups part of your checklist. Oops. I didn't like the way I underlined that, but it basically says dress ups there. So the first one we're going to talk about is strong verbs. And you already know that strong verbs give the reader an image of what's happening. So I'm just going to take that note right here and just put give reader image. And basically, rather than ran, you could say scurried or chased or bolted or something like that. I know I've given that example before, but basically just a more bang for your buck type of word to describe the action that's happening. So there's a couple of things though that I do want to caution you about. So I'm going to have you actually put the word caution here, meaning watch out for this. When you add, as soon as you add ing to a word, it is no longer a verb. That's probably, you know this, but you probably haven't heard it like that before. It's actually a verbal. And I'm going to explain what a verbal is. So I'm going to say when, and these are just going to be fragment sentences, not complete sentences. When adding ing, it's no longer a verb. And then I'm just going to put it's a verbal. And a verbal is basically a form of a verb, just like we were talking about forms of adjectives and forms of adverbs. We're moving into more complicated grammar when we talk about this. But an example right here, and I just want you to skip a couple lines and write the word running. And that word running, it could be a noun, and it could be an adjective, or it could be a participle. So as a noun, it would sound like this: running is fun, right? We can say running is fun is a thing. Running is, and it's giving an adjective about the noun running. So running is fun is an example of a noun. An example of an adjective would be, I heard running water, right? So running water is the type of water. Like, what kind of water am I hearing? Oh, running water. So it's not a verb in that example. But for a participle, it's kind of like half of an adjective and half of a verb. It's called a verbal adjective. So I'm going to have you put that here, verbal adjective. And it tells how or where. So here's an example. Running down the street, the dog chased the mailman. So if I say running down the street, it's telling where, but that verb in that sentence is actually chased. So running down the street, the dog chased the mailman. Here's another example. Studying until midnight, Jasper passed the chemistry test. You probably studied late before, but so studying till midnight is not the verb, but passing past the chemistry test is where the verb is at. So it's telling when. Studying till midnight tells when. Another example is listening carefully. Melina, I'll mention Melina because I know she's going to be watching this later. Melina got a good score on her quiz. So listening carefully is telling how, but she got, which is the verb, she got a good score on her quiz. So telling how or when, or where, I mean, how or where is a verbal adjective. It's describing more about the noun and what's happening in that sentence. Okay, those are the examples of that. So when you're writing your papers and you're using your checklist and you're going through and you come across strong verbs, the best advice I can give you is to stay away from ing verbs. They can be, it's a little tricky. So it's just best to stay away from that and try to think of other verbs that you can use in the sentence. Does that make sense, Jasper? Okay, good. Awesome. All right. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about, go ahead and skip a line. We're going to put number 2 is ly adverbs. And we know that those modify verbs, right? They tell more about what's happening in the writing, in the sentence. And it also gives an image. I'm going to put give image here too. But there is a caution about ly adverbs as well. So go ahead and put the word caution again. Sometimes ly words are adjectives, and we've talked about those before as imposters. So I'm just going to have you put sometimes ly words are adjectives. And that's when they become an imposter. They're not really an adverb. They're more of an adjective. And here's some examples of ly adjectives. By the way, I'm going to have you look back on one of your lists. It's a pink list from your binder. And I think you're keeping it at the very front of your binder, or you might have moved it behind dress up lists, I think is the name of the tab. It's page 43. It's a pink page. It might be under stylistic techniques or the very front of your binder, but it's pink and it's page 43. Let me know if you find it. Looks like, I'll show you what it looks like here.
I found it.
Okay, perfect. Okay. And on that list, you will see that at the bottom, there's a list of imposters. I'll just show it on the screen in case Melina needs to find hers. Looks like that, page 43. And at the very bottom, you'll see imposters. These are actually the adjectives down below that end in ly, but are not adverbs, they're actually adjectives. So that list things like chilly, I think chilly is on here. So like a chilly room, right? You wouldn't say the rainbow, you wouldn't say, okay, let me think of an example here. The dog Chili ran after the cat, because chili and then ran, they don't go together, right? So, but if you're talking about a room, the chilly room, obviously that's the adjective. So to do the little test, you're going to try to put it with a verb or a noun. And obviously it just doesn't sound right with a verb because it's not an adverb here. Could be like the ugly shirt. That makes sense, the ugly shirt. But you wouldn't use it with a verb. It wouldn't fit. Or the friendly dog, lonely cat, prickly leaf, wrinkly skin, all of those go with a noun. So if you check it by putting it next to a noun, that's going to help you identify if it's an adverb or an adjective. Okay, so I'm going to come back to that list in a second here. So I'm just going to have on your note page, just going to add a couple of these like chilly room, ugly shirt, and friendly dog. We'll put those three. They all end in ly, and sometimes, and it's really not a problem with you, Jasper. I haven't seen it, maybe a couple of times early on when you started using ly, but just to make sure you stay on top of that. Make sure you're not accidentally using it as an adjective. Okay. Sometimes though, that ly words can either function as an adverb or an adjective. So there are a few of them that cross over and can be both. So I'm going to have you write this. I'm just going to have you put can be ly adverb or adjective. And those examples would be like the word, and I'm going to give you an example here, daily. That word daily, you could say, I exercise daily. I'm going to have you write these sentences. In that sentence, you're modifying exercise, which is a verb. So that would become an adjective. So I exercise daily. But if I say actually exercise, sorry, I messed up on that because exercise is actually a noun. It's a thing. So that would be an adjective, you exercise daily. But if I say I daily brush my teeth, that would be an adverb. So let's just put ADV and ADJ above this one. So that becomes an adjective, is describing exercise, is actually a thing. I daily brush my teeth is a verb, brush. But it could be I have a daily routine, or I read the daily newspaper. And that would be more of an adjective. Again, I read the daily paper. That would be an adjective. So you see how sometimes, depending on how it's used in the sentence, it could be an adjective or an adverb. So that's one of those tricky LYs are kind of tricky that way. It's either an adjective or an adverb, and there's just a few. If it tells a category like it happens periodically, like other than daily, you could use words like weekly or hourly or yearly. Those are all can be used either way as an adjective or an adverb. Okay, I don't know if you have room at the bottom of your paper. If you do, you can keep going. I'm going to erase this. And did you get it all already, Jasper?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm going to erase that, and I'm going to keep going because there's a number 3 I want to talk about. Is quality adjective. And this is kind of cool. Because the quality adjective, this is kind of cool because I know this is a new thing on your checklist, and it might be a little tricky to find a quality adjective, but here's a trick. It's an adverb, it's an ly adverb minus the ly. An ly adverb minus the ly. So you could actually use that list that we just were looking at on page 43 and look at that first word on page 43 is absent-mindedly. If I said absent-mindedly professor, that doesn't really fit together because with the ly, it modifies a verb, not a noun. But if I said absent-minded professor, which is actually a movie, that fits, right? So go ahead and put absent-mindedly professor, and then absent, whoops, minded professor. I'm having a hard time talking and writing at the same time. Put an X by absent-mindedly professor, but put a check by absent-minded professor. So I'm just giving you an example of how you can actually use this list, this adverb list, take off the ly, and you've got a great list of adjectives that you can use as a quality adjective in your writing. So that's going to help you come up with some good words. I'll just do one more example here. If I said affectionately dog, affectionately dog, that does not make sense, right? And put an X by that. But if I put affectionate dog, I'm going to put a check mark by that because affectionate dog makes sense. It's an adjective describing the dog. So there you go. You got a little clue if when you're going to your writing, trying to look for a good quality adjective. I think there's other pink lists that are in your binder. You could pull out any of those adverb lists, take off the ly, and you've got an adjective. So it's pretty cool. You can use that. All right. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about, Number 4 is the basically a topic clincher. Let's see, where are we at with time? Oh boy, this is going to be quick. And this is the last part here. So I'm going to have you just write really quick here, just jot down a quick outline. And this is how we're not going to write any words on here. I'm just going to model this format. You already are familiar with this. I know we've been doing this a lot. So, oops. All right, you see the pattern. You've got the clincher, and the Roman numerals are the topics. Speed that up a little bit. So these Roman numerals are each topic that you're writing about, and your subject this week and last week was Father Damien and the lepers. Each Roman numeral is a topic about him and about that article that you read. So remember the clincher, and I just want you to draw an arrow up to that Roman numeral. And on the margin here, I just want you to put 2 to 3. Scoot over so you can see that. 2 to 3, repeat or reflect. And remember earlier, I mentioned that reflecting is giving it more style. So I recommend trying to reflect as much as you can. Same here. You're going to do it again for this paragraph. And I'm just going to put 2 to 3. And then for this paragraph, same, 2 to 3. And you want to reflect as much as you can. If you cannot think of a good word to reflect, go ahead and just repeat. That's at least following the rules. And then something, extra happens down here. I know we've talked about it before, but I want to give you this visual because this has a double job down here, the clincher, because it also has to reflect back on the title. Right, we've got it. It's gonna repeat or reflect the topic right here, but this only repeats. We're not reflecting the title. Remember, the title rule is 1 to 3. It has to repeat 1 to 3. So go ahead and write here, repeat 1 to 3 words. So instead of giving your papers an extra sentence to repeat the title, you're going to make that last sentence going to do 2 things. You're going to have it repeat or reflect, preferably reflect your topic, and you're going to have it repeat 1 to 3 words from your title. So that last sentence has a double job. Okay, does that make sense, Jasper? Okay, I wanted to get that visual so you can refer back to that as you're writing. Okay, so that's all of the class notes for today. That's pretty much all we have time for, but I'm just going to have you work on your Father Damien and the lepers. There's a couple of things you got to fix on your paper that you turned in this week. So you're going to fix those things, and then you're going to focus on Roman numeral 3. And do you have an idea of what you're going to talk about next as far as your topic with Father Damien?
Mostly about like the last sort of section leading up to his death.
Okay. So maybe let me look back here too. Let's see. You have some choices like, yeah, his death, end of life, and leading up to that. And you can talk about the lepers as it relates to Damien, because obviously the more they're together, he's being exposed, and obviously that's leading up to what happens at the end. And then princess, that was one topic you can mention if you want to at the end, but it sounds like you have an idea of how you want to wrap it up. So, and that's good. So basically you're going to do the same thing you've been working on. Do your outline first for Roman numeral 3. And Your topic will be, I think we even labeled it Father Damien and end of life, and then whatever we talked about content. Remember how he was actually content at the very end of his life? So including all the facts in your keyword outline that reflect that, that you found interesting, important, or relevant that connected to that. So do your keyword outline first for Roman numeral 3, and then go ahead and write your third paragraph as your homework this week. And then fix the little things that I mentioned on your homework in Google Classroom. And then you'll turn it in, like the whole thing, the whole report will be turned in next week with your new title, with all the topic clincher and all that stuff. Okay.
All right.
And then the last thing I wanted to mention is I do want you to start turning in your checklist with the check marks. So if you could scan that after you check off those things on your list, take a picture or scan it and upload it to your homework with your paper. Okay.
All right.
Okay. And that's pretty much it for today. Anything you want to say or any questions or anything?
I don't think so.
You're good. Okay. Well, yeah, text me if you have trouble logging in so I know what's going on next time. Otherwise, just try to make it at 8:30 if you can. Okay, Jasper.
I think what happened was that Zoom updated, so it like kicked me out, so that I had to like log back in. 'Cause
Okay.
when I was going into it, I saw at the bottom it said 2023.
Oh,
So
that's
I
happened
think
to me
it just
before. Yeah. Okay. That makes
because
sense.
everything on this part right now, where like it shows you and all the options at the bottom, it looks much different than last time.
Okay. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it takes a while to update it too. So, all right, Jasper. Sounds good. Well, I'll see you next week. Have a good rest of the week.
All right, you too.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Mhm.